He gave strangers my number and told them I'd sleep with them for cash. I was humiliated, and instead of screaming, I quietly destroyed his little reputation. Here's how I did it. My name's Lauren Parker. I'm 30, I live in a mid-sized city outside of Chicago, and if you've ever dated the kind of guy who thinks the world owes him something, you already know the type I'm talking about. Kyle, that was his name, had the charm of someone who practiced grinning in the mirror and the backbone of a deflated party balloon. No job that mattered, living at his parents' place, the kind of confidence that smelled a little like desperation. We dated for maybe 2 months. 2 months of messy laughter, enough good nights to trick me into thinking maybe he'd grow up. Then I woke up one morning and realized I didn't want to babysit an ambition-addled man-boy for the rest of my 20s. So yeah, I ended it. I thought that was the end of the story. It wasn't. Not even close. At first it was the usual passive-aggressive stuff. Weird looks from people who used to be friends. Little snide texts that sounded like someone testing the water. But then the humiliation started. First a phone call. I usually don't answer numbers I don't have saved. It's not cool, it's just prevention. But the night it happened I answered, I don't know why. Maybe part curiosity, part the idea I could control the narrative by staying calm. A man's voice, older, bored-sounding, asked if I was Lauren. I said, depends. Who is this? And then the sentence I'll never forget rolled across the line, your ex gave me your number. He said you'd be up for a good time. He said you'd do it for $100. Time does this weird thing during moments of shock, it slows and gets loud in your head while the world around you moves on stupidly. I remember the taste in my mouth, like metal. I remember thinking, is this a prank? Did he think this would be funny? My anger didn't explode right away. It settled like a stone. Someone had literally bartered my number like it was a coupon for a fast food chain. The audacity felt personal and gross. I told the man to get lost and hung up. I wanted to call Kyle and tear into him. I could imagine every way to make him feel the small humiliation he was selling. But I also knew that calling him would be feeding the beast. He lived off reaction. He loved causing a scene. So I bottled it down. Then, like the universe trying to be extra cruel, a second call came the next night. This voice sounded older, someone's grandfather who got bored and started treating people like commodities. Your ex gave me your number, he croaked. He said you'd do it for $50. 50. They'd put a price on my dignity and marked it down overnight. I didn't just want to yell at Kyle, I wanted a reaction that would strip his smugness and make him feel awkward in the exact currency he cared about, attention and image. So I decided I would fight back smart. Not drama, not a screaming match. Petty, surgical, and public enough to sting. I made a Tinder profile. I used Kyle's face. I used his exact photos, the black t-shirt where he looks like he's trying too hard, the half-smirk picture, every single one. For the bio I wrote something that sounded like his fantasy, something so obviously him that he'd laugh in his delusion, nice man seeking a woman to spoil and pamper. No strings. Money to spare. Then, without a second thought, I dropped his phone number in the contact info and even linked his FB profile so anyone could verify the offer was real. It felt a little criminal, and also a little delicious. Within hours, the messages rolled in. Men with no shame offering cash amounts that got progressively ridiculous. One guy offered $500 for a meet. A few offered a weekend. I didn't answer anyone. I let the messages stack like unread mail. I imagined each ping going straight to Kyle's phone and into his ego like a tiny needle. There's this strange thing that happens when you watch someone's carefully curated life unravel just enough to make them uncomfortable. You don't feel triumphant so much as relieved. Relief is the closest word, relief that your name wasn't actually being made into a joke without you knowing about it. By the end of the week, the payoff was simple and beautiful. I called an unknown number and his number had been changed. He'd deleted Facebook. He'd scrubbed himself. The guy who prided himself on easy access to people and attention. Gone quiet. That silence felt like a little victory bell. I'm not pretending I was noble. I knew what I'd done had a mean edge. Could it have been illegal? Maybe. But so had his act of giving my number to random strangers without any permission. I clung to the symmetry. He humiliated me. I reclaimed my dignity in the only way that felt immediate and fair. It's weird how quickly the online world will fix itself. He went quiet, yes, but in a few weeks he was back with different pictures and a new number. People forget, and people move on. But those first few days, I watched with a kind of clinical satisfaction. Every message that popped into that fake profile felt like a pebble ricocheting across his ego. My friends were hilarious about it. I told 2 of them what I'd done and they genuinely celebrated it like a small holiday, do it again, kind of energy. My mom gave me a long lecture about dignity and boundaries, which made me think, and then think some more. She said maybe there was a better way to handle it. She was right about that. But she was also missing the visceral, humiliating sting of what I'd felt when my number had been trafficked around like a bargaining chip. The truth, revenge rarely cleans anything. It just rearranges the furniture for a minute so the room looks different. That rearrangement was enough for me. Watching him delete, calling friends who reported his apparent embarrassment, almost running into him at a bar and seeing his posture gone soft, these things were tiny stitches in me feeling whole again. There's a particular humiliation that public people fear, the idea that their curated image, the one they sell to the world, might be stripped away by someone laughing at the backstage. I'd exposed him to a little backstage view. It was petty, sure, but to me it felt earned. Then reality caught up. I started to feel a prickly shame. Was I better or worse for doing what I did? Did I stoop to his level? I can't lie, some nights I slept like a baby because I'd made him pause. Other nights I had to sit with the fact that I'd used anonymity to hurt someone socially. The moral scale doesn't always balance out neatly. The point is I felt both satisfaction and a small, nagging regret. This is the core of petty revenge, it's quick, it's sharp, and it costs you something in the aftermath. It doesn't teach empathy necessarily. It teaches consequence. It can be a corrective if you keep it measured. Months later, word came back that he'd been trying the same pattern again, the old habits die hard. A mutual friend texted that he'd been boasting about similar conquests. Classic. He hadn't learned the deeper lesson. And honestly, that made me less angry and more resigned. People like him will keep being the type of men who think the world is a buffet of people to use. I'd carved a small notch in that behavior, but I wouldn't delude myself into thinking I'd fixed him. Sometimes the best revenge is simply living. I made changes. I blocked people. I grew boundaries. I stopped giving anyone the ability to treat me like a commodity. The act of revenge was a moment. The long part was reclaiming my life so I didn't need to rely on those moments anymore. But for the record, when he finally noticed his world had been pried open and his number scrubbed, I smiled. I won't pretend I didn't enjoy that. It's human. We are messy. We want to be respected. And in that small universe of attention and ego, I made a public correction that put him on the defensive where he'd put me. You hear a lot of people say, revenge never solves anything. I get the sentiment. It's a moral aphorism designed to prevent escalation. But there's nuance. Revenge can be petty and pointless, or it can be a controlled reflection used to protect your boundaries. I think what I did sits somewhere in the middle. I don't pretend I'm proud of the method. I'm not going to write a manifesto for vigilante justice. But I will say this, when someone attempts to commodify you, to reduce your dignity into a bargaining chip, you have the right to defend that dignity. I defended it in a way that fit me. It was surgical instead of dramatic. It was a mirror instead of a punch. Did it change him deeply? Probably not. People who behave like that don't always learn lessons the way we hope. They sometimes just get quieter, move spaces, and try the same tricks again in new places. But did it change me? Somewhat. It clarified where my lines are and what I won't tolerate. I began to see my social energy as finite. It's a currency you shouldn't give away to someone who treats it like spare change. There was a moment of real closure for me. Not some cathartic confrontation where everyone cries and apologizes. Closure was when I stopped thinking about him midweek and instead booked a weekend away with friends. It was when I laughed at a meme and didn't pause to track whether he'd see it and comment. Maximizing your life instead of chasing the act of exposing someone felt like the real victory. I want to be honest, sometimes I think about the ethics. I wouldn't want someone to do that to me. And I don't recommend people go to extremes. If you're out there thinking this is a how-to manual for social sabotage, don't. But if you are sitting in the aftermath of being degraded in a small, humiliating way, know that you have options, and acting on them is up to your temperament and your sense of proportionality. So, did I feel bad? Not really. I felt complicated. A mix of satisfaction and reflection and the quiet knowledge that I'd taken back something that had been taken from me. If you're wondering whether I slept well after, I did. Not because I'd won in some grand cosmic sense, but because I'd done something that suited me, that fit my values. I reclaimed my privacy, I protected my name, and I decided not to let him get the last word. That was enough. And karma? Maybe it's real. Maybe it's a concept people use to make sense of social consequences. Whatever. In practical terms, he learned to be quieter. He learned to be smaller in the places where attention mattered. That's not redemption, but it's consequence. If you like this story and want more real-life petty victories and lessons, hit like, subscribe, and drop your own stories in the comments. I read them all. What would you do if someone tried to sell your dignity? Tell me. If this made you smile or cringe, like the video and subscribe for more true stories of petty justice and boundary setting. Got a revenge story? Share it below, I read every one.